Welcome to the Execution Gap. I am Mohammed Younus from World Future Company. I work with CFOs at the mega projects on financial systems. How do you close the books in days instead of week? How do you achieve the zero audit finding when spending $1 billion over 6 months? Today's guest knows the answer. Rami Khattar managed $960 million for the FIFA World Cup Qatar 2022, like 57,000 packages sold, multiple jurisdiction, 18 months timeline, global scrutiny. Zero audit discrepancies, not even one. Now he is in Riyadh bringing the mega event financial expertise to Saudi Arabia's transformation. Rami Khattar, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction.
So, Rami, before
Yes,
we
Mohammed.
dive in, for the people who don't know about FIFA, can you set the context why you say you managed $960 million for the World Cup? What does it actually mean day to day? And what were you responsible for?
Definitely. Yeah, so again, I'm Rami Khattar. I'm a finance leader with more than 15 years experience in the MENA region and GCC. Most recently, I led the function of the finance department for the FIFA World Cup commercial hospitality program in Qatar. And as you know, this is a mega event. I was leading the finance strategy and governance, end-to-end operations for the finance department. It's a high impact financial operations. And thanks God, it was a successful program where we achieved almost $1 billion in revenues. So yeah, I'm looking
Great.
forward for the conversation with you. It's a hot topic, in fact.
Yes. So, Rami, you managed $960 million, around 1 billion for the FIFA in 18 months. Qiddiya will manage 8 billions over 10 years, and NEOM is like 500 billion over decades. From a financial control perspective, what's harder about mega event finance compared to Giga project? And what's easier?
That's a good question. Well, so speaking again of managing this huge mega event, almost $1 billion in revenues. So I think looking backward at that time, the hardest part was the uncertainty during the pandemic. It was COVID-19. So the speed, the scrutiny, like every payment, every multi-currency transaction, and every approval had to be right the first time because global eyes were on us and the timelines
Exactly.
were compressed, so errors were immediately visible. So here governance and accountability and clarity weren't optional, so you had to build this into the process. So from a controls perspective, I think what becomes harder in the giga projects such as Qiddiya and NEOM, which are PIF backed developments within the Saudi Arabia sovereign investment framework, you have to look at the structure. So it's a structural complexity. And over time, this complexity will increase. So you're looking at multiple entities, joint ventures, and evolving scopes, long capital
Right.
deployment cycles. So this is the challenge, I think, which would shift from speed under scrutiny and to maintaining consistency on governance and transparency, because this across much broader ecosystem over many years ahead compared to the mega event. When you look at the mega event, if we compare the
Mhm.
structures, the structure would be more finite. It's clearly defined. You have fewer entities and stakeholders. So the ownership lines are more connected and it's direct. So the approvals are more straightforward, I think. So here, the real enabler should be the robust financial planning, disciplined risk management, and well-structured legal entities and integrated digital systems. So all working together, could decisively act as the control and integrity were never compromised. So,
Great.
so in bottom line, I think when you speak about mega events, you got the speed, you got the precision under stress and scrutiny, while giga projects, you need to test endurance and structural governance over a longer period of time.
So when you say the transparency and governance, how does that translate to the CFO at a project spanning 2 billion a years across 15 different entities?
Yeah, so So it's very important to set the governance and to embed the governance into the frameworks at the beginning. So this should be embedded into the system. All the teams should be aware about the operating system, and awareness is a key. Clarity and transparency is very important. So everyone knows what to do and should be accountable for that.
So you achieved zero audit discrepancies on a $960 million program with the FIFA and Deloitte oversight. That's exceptional, really exceptional. Most mega projects are run by smart people with big four auditors, have 15 to 20 audit findings. Then what's the financial control framework did you implement at FIFA most CFOs miss?
That's right. So again, thanks God for the successful operational excellence we had. And we concluded the program with no material audit findings under external audit oversight. I think achieving, zero audit findings on a $1 billion program wasn't accidental. So it was engineered from day one. Operationally, at the start, we worked closely with the legal teams, with advisors. As I mentioned, we built the governance framework in partnership with Big Fours. So we had Deloitte as external auditors, PwC as advisory and consultancy. And this was
Great.
across all the legal entities worldwide. So we ensured that every process aligned with the international financial reporting standards and the local regulatory requirements. So I can say compliance was not an afterthought. It was embedded at design stage. You asked me about the CFOs missing. So I think some CFOs, they absorb by daily transactions and execution. So and they forgot about the governance. So you don't have to lose the structural clarity. The real differentiator was making trust ownership foundational. So every department had, as I mentioned, know their accountability boundaries. The transparency was non-negotiable, and continuous reconciliation with live variance reporting kept us tightly aligned to the budget at all
Exactly.
times.
So, was it a process or technology or a team structure? If you could only fix a one thing in a broken control environment, what's the highest leverage intervention?
So I think you cannot speak about just technology alone or separate it from the process. Here you need to manage, or look at different pillars. So
Right.
you need to combine the external technical rigor. You need to look at integrated digital systems, which is technology, and overall the governance
Right.
and the culture of accountability. So compliance became a natural byproduct of
Right.
how we operated. So this is not a checklist exercise. I think the shift in the mindset is often what separates clean audits from reactive corrections.
Great. So, Rami, FIFA and IOC have decades of financial governance standards and IFRS compliance, multi jurisdiction reporting, stakeholder transparency. Mega projects are often
Mhm.
building these frameworks from scratch while spending billions simultaneously. So, from FIFA experience, what's the governance gap between international mega event standards and where large projects typically start?
Okay. The governance gap often comes down to clarity, accountability, and integrated control. If you look at FIFA and the IOC, these are big institutions. They operate with highly disciplined frameworks. So each transaction and entity, every approval should be traceable and it's auditable and it's linked to a decision, right? So there is transparency and accountability across the organization. For some mega projects, they might focus on operational mechanism, or they can start with like, okay, let's deliver first and governance will come later on. So I think here's the gap. When you leave this gap in the entity control level controls and cross functional reporting approval matrices, um, if you if you look at the solution or how to close this gap, again, you need to embed the governance into the workflow, empowering department heads with ownership
Right.
and
Right.
leveraging real-time systems, so reconciliations, reporting, and variance analysis would happen continuously rather than retrospectively. So yeah, and if if you speak about trust and integrity and accountability, this should be foundational. So you give the
Correct.
leadership confidence to make decisions, right?
Right, right. So, is that a system when you are telling about the leadership as well as the problem? Is that a system problem, a people problem, or a regulatory framework problem? What does need to change first when it comes to
So
gap?
when you look at complexity and you need to see the priorities. So I think fundamentally you need to have the proper regulatory frameworks at the beginning, and when you apply the governance on the system, when there is transparency and clarity, people will adapt, right?
Correct.
So yeah, if you're looking at building a culture and a system where clarity and governance are like inseparable from operations, so everything will interact and work on properly.
That's right. That's right. So now I want to speak about something about the migration decision because you led the AX to D365 migration during the FIFA World Cup, not after, during. Most companies wait for the calm periods to do the ERP migration. Why do you do it in the middle of one of the world's highest pressure financial operations? That's the question which is ringing me when I think
Yeah.
to speak to you.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. I mean, to think this way, I think most organizations delay ERP migrations because they fear disrupting operations. But actually, we took the opposite approach. So the FIFA event
Hmm.
timeline forced discipline and clarity. So waiting for, I mean, if we would haven't applied the implementation and the migration of E365 and waited for a better timing, there's opportunity cost. And here, this could have delayed the benefits of a system fully designed for real-time visibility, integrated controls, and automated approvals. So this is what precisely we needed for the 960 million revenues, for the 257,000 commercial hospitality packages sold globally. So we fully migrated from AX to D365, but in fact, we focused on utilizing the finance module as our in-house sales system already handled the sales orders and the billings. And Muhammad,
Yeah.
migration of such softwares is a capex investment, and
Right.
this was fully aligned with the organizational strategy and the growth objectives. So when you do it properly and you ensure the teams are trained and the workflows tested, and the
Right.
controls embedded under live operations, you will get a success. So
Great.
yeah, I mean this was a successful migration. I want to know more about it.
I want to know that what is the breaking point? What is the, was it a real-time reporting, automation? What could not AX do that force you to do the migration in the mid-event?
Okay, so I remember, because we focused on the finance module, so I can give you an example. You're asking what would have worked like on D365 that could not
Yes.
work on AX, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so I remember when reconciling receivables and cash across multiple legal entities.
Mm.
On AX, that the process relied heavily on batch-based processing,
Okay.
some manual aggregation. So the closing positions required more time, like extracting the data, validating it offline, then performing multiple reconciliation cycles. Comparing this to the D365, the shift was, to real-time posting, embedded workflows, and integrated financial dimensions. So allowing transactions to be validated, matched, and reported within the system.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah.
The another thing is ERP migrations are famous for going wrong. Budget overruns, timeline delays, user adoption disasters. So be honest in this. What went wrong during D365 migration? And more importantly, what work that you had replaced or you would replace if you were doing it again?
Again, so as we focused on the finance module, as I mentioned earlier, so I remember the real complexity was reconciling two systems. So the sales system versus the finance model system. So we, particularly for receivables monitoring, payment allocations, and cash flow reporting. So
Okay.
we strengthened reconciliations from within finance, standardizing data extraction, building structured reconciliation models using advanced Excel controls, and deploying Power BI dashboards for live variance monitoring across receivables and cash. This shifted the reconciliation from the manual follow-up to a controlled and repeatable process with clear ownership and immediate visibility. So I think the key takeaway here, if you have some system integration, if I can say limitations, a strong financial architecture within the finance, structured data, automated reconciliation logic, and accountability can still deliver the governance and the transparency which you're
Right.
looking at. And this would give you, audit ready control at scale.
So in this, did you use a Microsoft partners, build in-house, or what was the implementation model? That I need to understand.
The implementation model from AX to D365 happened at full scale, right? We worked with a Microsoft local partner in Qatar to achieve this,
Okay.
and
Okay.
and across other Microsoft legal partner in Switzerland. So all
Hmm.
were working on the same and at the same time to
Okay.
finalize
Great.
this migration. But what I mentioned, we only utilized as finance
Hmm.
the finance model of the Microsoft.
Okay. Okay. Right. So can you give me one concrete example? What process took 3 days to AX that now takes 3 hours on D365, if you remember?
I think I mentioned earlier on your previous question when we were reconciling receivables and cash that it took days on AX to finalize this because the process relied heavily on manual aggregation, data extraction, and reconciliations because you need to validate it offline. But while we shifted to D365, that was just easier. So you can talk about real-time posting architecture and better visibility and embedded workflows.
Yes. So for a CFO at Saudi Giga-Project implementing a D365, what's the one capability to prioritize in first 90 days?
All right. So I want to look at this at a macro or with a macro lens, right? So the first thing which comes to my mind in simple terms, they need to build visibility because trust, governance, and execution speed, all these depend on visibility, right?
Correct.
So I think for the first few months or 90 days, as you mentioned, for finance
Mhm.
leaders at Saudi mega or giga projects, they should establish real-time multi-entity financial visibility
Right.
with embedded and continuous reconciliation and clear ownership because fragmented data with these projects, big, huge projects, it's not an
Right.
inefficiency. It's a governance risk. Yeah.
That's true.
So at this level, real-time financial visibility is not just operational advantage, it's a foundational to institutional trust. So again, when you embed governance into the system, organization will align naturally with the regulatory expectations. And looking at Saudi Arabia's financial ecosystem and the national transformation happening, looking at the regulatory frameworks like Central Bank of Saudi, the SAMA,
Mhm.
and the Capital Market Authority, I've been watching closely, like they are doing, good progress on that upgrade in the regulatory framework. Yeah, I was just I wanted to add, like as Vision 2030 accelerates, national transformation in parallel with the global shift toward digital finance, I
Correct.
believe because we are talking about Saudi mega projects, they
Right.
they do have the opportunity, not only to adopt the best practices, but to set the
Right.
new global benchmarks in transparency and accountability and decision grade financial leadership because they do have the scale and they can lead actually.
Right. So already as you are now based in Riyadh and when you're talking about Vision 2030 and the finance for the Saudi mega project. So from FIFA experience, knowing what it takes to manage nearly $1 billion in the real time with zero audit, findings. What is the financial control challenge you think Saudi Giga project will face in next 24 months?
It all rotates around governance. So I think the biggest challenge will be maintaining governance discipline while scaling complexity. So you're looking at huge giga projects. This complexity over time, will increase and the scaling is rising. So these projects expand faster than the control architecture. This would be a failure. So the risk is not capability. I mean, the Saudi projects, they do have world-class talents.
Right.
The risk is fragmentation of decision rights, accountability across entities and partners, and reporting and the real-time reconciliations. Because many organizations, now if you follow the global trend, they are going on-chain, right? So they're applying on-chain reconciliations, real-time reporting, and integrated digital ledgers and following the digital ledger technology. So
Right.
I believe the Saudi mega projects, they do have the opportunity to adopt these innovations while embedding the clarity, accountability, and the structured ownership from the beginning.
Right. So when you're talking about multi-entity consolidation and the real-time liquidity as well as the stakeholder reporting, what's the gap you see most often?
When you talk about the gap is the lack of transparency, as I mentioned, if the focus is more on operations rather than the governance. So if you don't have the proper frameworks at the beginning and there is transparency and ownership strategy, then yes, you could face issues.
So the according to the multi-entity frameworks, Qiddiya has the theme park, sports, real estate, hospitality, and all separate entities. And also NEOM has 15 plus legal entities across different sectors. So you manage the match hospitality with multiple subsidiaries and multi-currency operations in the company transactions. What's the control framework for multi-entity consolidation that mega projects should implement before they scale for past $500 million in the annual spend?
Yeah, so the control framework, which could prevent the consolidation failure, I think it would rely on a few pillars. First, coming to my mind, the standardized data. So you need to have a common chart of accounts and financial dimensions so that your data is comparable across the business units. Secondly, governance. So embedded governance and should be clear and enforced. So with defined ownership, approval, hierarchies, and escalation paths. Finally, the consolidation and the reconciliation must be continuous and it should be real time, leveraging dashboards and BI tools to flag anomalies instantly.
So, how fast should they be able to close their books? I mean, like 5 days or 3 days? What's the benchmark?
So when you talk about real visibility and real time or near real time, we should not, speaking about days. It should be live data. So this is the hope or the ambition for which we need to work on it. Again, so when you align all these pillars, the data standardization, the governance, and the continuous monitoring and consolidations, and you align this with the digital finance transformation. Here we speak about technology and innovations. This will move toward real-time on-chain reconciliation. So at that point, the Giga projects can scale without losing transparency, accountability, or decision confidence. Yeah, so when structured this way, consolidation becomes a strategic tool rather than a reporting burden.
Right, great. So, if you are advising to a CFO scaling from $2 billion to $8 billion in project value over the next few years, what is the first thing you will tell them to fix into their financial controls?
First thing to fix, I think it should be the decision ownership designing, because at that scale, financial risk rarely comes from technical errors, uh,
All right.
but it could come from unclear accountability across multiple entities if not done properly. So when you embed the ownership into the systems, the workflows, and reporting logic, this would ensure finance is predictive, not reactive,
Right.
right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So one thing I hear from the mega project, the financial officers or the financial directors constantly telling we don't have the real time visibility into the cash flow, commitments, earn rate. So we are waiting for month end to understand our position. To manage $960 million in real time, how do you build that visibility, and what would you tell to a CFO still working off month for the month ends reports?
Yeah. So this is also interconnected to the previous question.
Right.
I believe the real-time visibility is not a reporting upgrade. So we are talking about an operating model. So during the FIFA World Cup with Match Hospitality, we integrated, treasury, commitments, and revenue into a single live cash framework. Right. So you have daily treasury consolidation, rolling 13-week forecasts, and
Hmm.
a commitment like register linked to the procurement. This allowed us to manage liquidity as a
Right.
moving system, not a month end snapshot. And this visibility also let us optimize the surplus cash. So we benefit from that rolling over fixed deposits worth
Hmm.
millions for very short tenors, sometimes a week or less. And, we gained almost like $6 million just from this, easy exercise. At the same time, we were meeting the vendor payments, the contractual obligations without risk or delays. So for the CFOs or finance leaders who still rely on the month-end reports, as you asked, I think this should there should be a shift.
Right.
So if we need to focus on, liquidity as a daily discipline,
Right.
you need to treat cash as a KPI, like embedded visibility into commitments. You need to lead with scenarios and incentives. You can run stress, test opportunity scenarios and just align incentives to cash behavior, and you can act on the daily signals. Most overall, mostly the governance first, technology second. So
Exactly.
here, if you look at some would prefer law, will go for
Hmm.
technology, then we will look at governance second. I think this is not the proper approach because
Right.
dashboards enable, but they don't give you control, right? So
Yes.
process ownership and liquidity mindset turn data into actionable decisions.
So that's what I
Yeah.
was thinking to ask, that is this a pure technology or is it a culture? People don't want the real time transparency, and you have given the great
Yeah.
answer.
So it's not technology first,
Right.
definitely.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, all right, Rami, final segment, rapid fire. 5 questions. First thing that comes to mind. Ready?
Okay. Good, good title.
Right. So, biggest financial mistake you have seen in mega projects?
The biggest mistake. You know what? When you underestimate the power of ownership and the clarity, I think this would be a big mistake. Here, I something comes into my mind. So when you look at non-finance departments,
Hmm.
right? In most organizations, they look at finance as non-revenue generating rather than the engine of operational governance.
Right.
I think modern finance, when integrated across functions, and then you empower the teams to read between the lines and understand strategy, they could take ownership of their budgeted figures, for example. And this cross-functional accountability transforms finance from a support function into a driver of decision making and
Mhm.
transparency and performance.
Right. So, one resource that shaped your approach to the financial leadership.
Yeah, to me, I've always believed true leadership is about building a team of professionals who can thrive independently and who understand not just the how but also the why. So this comes by nature, by training, by character building, and creating an environment of clarity, of trust. Trust is very important, and ownership, and definitely accountability. So here you can empower people to make decisions confidently, and because I also look at finance at a bigger, if you zoom out, the lens, if you look at big institutions,
Hmm.
so we as retail, we need to also look at big institutions, top global institutions, and how they treat finance, right? So I can give examples at JP Morgan,
Hmm.
BlackRock, these manage like trillions of AUM, which is
Right.
assets under management. So these institutions, they are not just managing capital. Nowadays, they are exploring new opportunities on-chain solutions, on DeFi, like decentralized finance,
Right.
tokenization, which is a big topic. We can
Right.
spend hours talking about it. Tokenization of real-world assets, and finding new models to generate yield. So this, you're talking about capital restructuring and making the capital
Correct.
work continuously
Right.
rather than just sitting idle, right?
Right. 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 So, if you could change one thing about how mega projects approach finance, what it would be?
I would shift finance from being a reporting or just a control function to strategic enabler of value creation. And this connects with my point, which I was talking about, finding new ways to generate yields, right? I believe the decision makers in mega events and giga projects, they need to closely watch the global finance evolution. If I look at Saudi Arabia again, and I mentioned this, how regulators, they are really tracking, doing progress, like SAMA, CMA, and even, other GCC countries, central banks and the investment authorities, they are shaping frameworks toward digital transparency and the accountable capital. So digital transformation should be applied by such
Right.
big projects. It's no longer like who will close the books faster, or right, or you have automated controls. This is comes for granted. Like, it's about redefining how balance sheets, liquidity, and risk actively create value.
Right.
So for the finance leaders in such big projects, I think they should combine. We're not talking about,
No.
that the traditional finance is, they put it on the shelf. Or this is not the story.
Correct.
Finance leaders should combine both visions, like the traditional finance and emerging, new era in finance, and the
Hmm.
emerging DeFi trends,
Right.
which means real-time settlement, tokenization of real-world assets, optimized collateral structures. So these all help the organizations, to activate capital efficiently. You can
Okay.
attract domestic and international liquidity.
Right.
Yeah.
So, what's the financial metric most CFOs track that does not actually matter?
So again, if the finance leader just is obsessed over, closing like every month, or overlooking, end of period variances and comparing, actual figures to budgets, I think if just you're focusing on these numbers, this is total noise, right? What really matters in finance, are you enabling decision making? Are you predicting risks, right?
Right.
How are you optimizing the capital? Metrics should be actionable,
Hmm.
real time, and it's all tied to the strategy of the organization,
Right.
and not just a report to check off.
So, for the CFOs or the people who want to connect, what's the best way to reach you?
I'm active on LinkedIn, and I would welcome connections from everyone, especially who has a motivation and, enthusiasm, talking about controls, about governance, about transformation, from finance leaders to mega project executives or investors. Sharing insights is the first step to building trust and collaborations.
So, Rami, this is what exactly what I hoped for. And here is what I'm taking away. One, the mega event finance and the giga project finance both required real time control, but mega events compress everything into months while giga projects sustain it for over years, right? And the second thing, which is the zero audit finding is not a luck, it's a specific framework governance around the multi entity consolidation and the real time liquidity and the book close speed. And the third thing which I'm taking it like the D365 migration during the World Cup was not reckless. It's a necessary because the real time visibility was a mission critical. And the fourth thing that the CFOs in the Saudi mega project, the time to build these control is now before the scale makes it exponentially harder. Did I miss anything?
You covered that beautifully, and just combined all the bold
Right.
keywords we covered. Thanks for taking notes.
Perfect, Rami. So for everyone listening, Rami's LinkedIn and the contact info are in the show notes. If you are a CFO or a finance leader working through these challenges, you can connect with him. Rami, former financial director for the FIFA World Cup Qatar 2022, now bringing that expertise into the Saudi Arabia's transformation. Thank you for coming to the execution gap, Rami.
Thank you.
And for everyone else, if these episodes made you rethink about your financial control, feel free to reach out. I am Mohammed Younus with World Future Company. Thanks for listening to the Execution Gap.
Thank you.